Ento ka ikero dhano kachiel.
and you give them a week,
Chi miyi gi chaber achiel.
people who don't know each other,
Joma pek ing'ene oluwe
at the end of that week,
ing'e chaber achiel.
they will start becoming friends.
Gubo chako geto wata ikiengi.
So when people with disabilities start coming around church
Ka joma tiki ng'olo gochako biro e
and
kanisa.
spending time with everyone else,
Gochako bedo kichawa kelo
they
wuodgi.
start creating friends.
Gichako geto war
Their
kiengi.
friends start caring for them,
Lurem gi dong chako konyogi.
bringing them food,
Gikele gi gino chama.
taking them to where the games are being played,
Giter gi kama tugo tika time.
bringing them to the practice for the choir.
Gikelo gi chawa me fonyo
You see
we.
how they've started becoming friends?
Ineno kite wat no tika gete kwere dong.
Now, what happens when they've started becoming friends?
Gino ng'o madong time ka waro chako donyo.
Especially for if you pay attention to the children.
Tutwale lutino ka ibero neno gi omot.
Children who do not know each other at all.
Lutino mano manaka pek ing'ene kiengi.
If you make one sit here
Ka ikero ng'aro achiel bedo kuja.
and another one sit there,
Ng'aro achiel bedo tenge tung kany.
within 1 minute,
Ikieno mi dakika achiel
they will
ke.
both be seated here next to each other.
Lutini gubo nyike gichako bedo kachiel
The
ye.
next minute,
I dakika mabiro
you
nyim.
will be telling them, go and play from outside.
Debe jogo ga joga ne tugunu ka
They've
tere
already
wako.
become friends.
No dongo gere wato.
And the one will start saying, Mom, give me the biscuit. I want to share with my new friend.
Ngat mamia no bino ke biscuit wa mama ke mia mer mi kila rema.
Even the parents, you do not know each other.
Kire walo lunyori mapay no ke ngene kiengi.
And now you start looking, who is the mom of this kid?
Dongi tu ki chako la nyori pala tien
Like
mene.
now our kids have become friends. You start talking to the
Mado
mother.
dog la rem la tien wa ne. Dongi tu ki chako lo ke
So
kiengi.
when people with disabilities come in the spaces where other people are
Ka joma tiki gor go bino kama luak ti
and
ye.
become friends,
Mago chako geto wat.
they start encouraging them.
Ki chako choko chunygi.
When it is choir practice time,
Ka chawa me fonyo we romo.
I'll say, hey, come and come. We are going for choir practice. You can come and sit in the back and you wait for me.
La reme wache bin kong wache cha me fonyo we romo. In gira bet ka ngej.
And at the end of the choir practice,
Ka fonyo we tum.
I'll start saying, you come and sing.
La reme tu ba in ke be in time
You
duoni.
can try. You come and play the drum.
Ko item go e bul ka itwero.
People who spend some time together.
Joma gi beru ka chi.
Someone in a wheelchair
Kire ka bet beri i ngolo.
will try to sing.
Obo chako tem we.
And among those, you find people who are very good singers.
Ikin jona ne be chako nyang.
You find that they can play the drums.
Inone joma ramo go e wa vultie.
They can wash plates.
Giramo luak wachwan.
They can sweep the compound.
Giramo yo e wadikal.
So they have now moving to the fifth and last stage, number 5.
No dong gitika a ke rome na mangwen gi cher na
The
mabi.
contribution stage.
Rome miyo gin mageti kwere.
That means they became friends
Tien loke ne gugere dong wato.
and their friend discovered their talent.
Lurem gi be guniang kero magiti kwere.
And they start bringing them to choir practices.
Gichako dong kelo gi
They start
fonyewe.
taking them to serve in the other ministries.
Wek gen go chak ti idok tich mukene.
And as ministers there, you start noticing that these people,
Machale dok tich en dong
they
chako niang.
can contribute.
Ni jone kartiki gen magaram miyo
They
ne.
will say, Peter
Iramo wache Peter.
is in a wheelchair,
Peter gere woro kilera
but
palongolo.
he has a good handwriting, he can
Ento
write.
choche leng mo.
Or he has a very good smile and he can greet.
Ka vunya kidano.
So every Sunday, put him in a wheelchair there.
Iwache Peter dong cha bet
He will come and greet people because he has a very big smile and he can greet.
Dano pian en ngeyo vunya dada.
So Peter starts contributing to the church.
Langolo ni dong chako miyo gen matiko.
Are we together?
Watika chel.
Remind me of the stages. Stage number 1,
Kepo we are Rome na machel.
stage number 2, stage number 3, stage number 4, stage number 5. Now, at which stage is your church?
Kaniche ni mono do oi Rome.
Is your church aware?
Kaniche mono ngeyo gen na watilo kayene.
Do you even think about these things?
Kong i chak tamo jimile ni wen kore.
Or if you put a ramp here,
Ka in kero ka donye mabe.
you find there is no ramp in the toilet area.
Inone ki choron ka donyo machalo man pegedare.
Now, if you come to Sunday and you end and you sit here,
Kadong ibine donyo chi
2
be.
minutes you want to go and ease yourself.
Kadong yoko kelu wiye me mier karo.
What do you think the person living with disability wants to do?
Itamani la gore ndo botimo gero.
They also want to ease themselves.
En be mir ni mir chi yoke.
So you have to be aware.
O mir bet ki ngeche anone.
You have to start caring.
O mir chak paro.
Those who are at care stage, they've started building the ramps.
Joma donge paro dongu chak o keto ka donyo bet mabe.
Those who are at friendship stage, you see they have people living with disabilities as friends and they're in the church.
Joma go oiro mi geto wate dongi tigulo ngole kiengi kanicha.
And that's not enough.
Le ene fut peramo.
Those who are at the contribution stage is the best stage.
Joma go oiro mat lungolo dongi timo gimone ene kama be.
You will see people with disabilities doing work in the
Ine
church.
lungolo dongi weta gitimo gimone kanicha.
Now let's move to the next slide.
Wachiru wono e votfony mukene.
Can you remind me how much time I'm left with?
Kopo wi achawa madong pere.
All right. Let's do this in about 5 minutes.
Wabet dolo ene kiana meda ke kabich.
Steps for evaluating your church and addressing barriers participation.
Ngiyo kita kanicha ni tiga tich ki kwanyo ki geng magaya ngolo.
Do we know barriers?
Wangiyo ki geng mono.
The things that keep people away from our churches.
Jimmy mawero kwejo ne peke bine kanicha wa.
Now, the first step in evaluation
Kadong in tiga ngiyo ko tichu
is creating a church profile.
in umire bet ki lokum kanicha mochoyo.
Now, when you say your church is Holy Spirit Fire Church,
Ka in wa ne kanicha wano pong ki chuny maleng ke machi kan iye.
what does it mean for members of that church to be there on a Sunday?
Dong tian lokane ngone lumay mamir go bien chigo beri kanicha chengchabet.
We cannot all be standing here and saying, fire, 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 fire. No.
Dano pegerom bien chigerom chako dangane maj.
When we create church profiles,
Kai nen wachoe lokum kanicha wen kore
a
kore.
Christian at our church
Lu kristayo magitie.
understands where to serve.
Maguniang kama miro gen getiye.
They understand how to give
Magen-
offertories.
Mageniang ne umiro gemi mor or
They
paloba.
understand how to worship.
Dak geniang kita miro ge wo
They
keloba.
understand how to participate.
Geniang ni miro ge tim ge mo or paloba.
But your profile has to be clear.
Ento lokum kanicha dak gen tiye.
You cannot just put a very nice big board or poster by the roadside
Pera mo keru chelli mai yo bo inger yo mabe.
and you simply say Jesus has risen or welcome church.
Chi wayani kanicha wane kiluona yechu do cheo.
And when people enter the church,
Kadano donye kanicha.
you wonder where the presence of Jesus is.
Ituki chako uone yechu make wajani
So we
tia.
cannot only have very nice buildings.
No itiki kanicha make geri
We
mabe.
cannot be pastors who dress very well on a Sunday.
Pe waramo be la kwat machunge mabe
The
chabe.
profile of our church has to be structured
Lokum kanicha wa mir bet make yubu mabe.
that it reflects the will of God.
Umiro nyut mir palo ba tiningo.
Step number 2,
Ruom mi na mario.
identifying the barriers.
Chako niang ki geng matie.
You remember when I talked about environmental barriers? You remember them?
Wipo gen ma wajani jem murumu wa maber chalo ki geng.
The steps, the doors, or widening, all these things. You
Kien ma ki
remember
yobo ki
all those
kaberu. Kira
environmental,
ki yobo ki choron kwere
the
wipo.
things you can see
Jimmy mai rama nano geo.
that keep people away.
Ma wego lungolo peke binu.
You eliminate those.
Ituki chako kwanyo ki geng anu niyo.
You remember when I talked about the social barriers?
Wipo ma wajani ki geng mukene tie mabino ki chwinywa.
The things we do not see
Jimmy ma pe wadano
but
kumgi.
are in our hearts.
Eto giti chwinywa.
And we say, you are welcome, come in.
Wawajani in bin wajuli.
And when the person sits here in front,
Kai nen langoro ne bino bera
and the
nyim.
pastor says next time, these people in wheelchair, put them behind.
La kwat dong wajani chabet kuri jone chwal ki wa ngech.
Those are things in our heart.
Meno no gian mati chwinywa ko me
And you
penan.
say, this, I don't want to sit next to this person, I'll sit the other side.
Wai pa mero beri kom la ingat langoro na meta bet wa kamabo.
the barriers of our heart.
Meno ki geng mati chwinywa.
So you talk and train your congregations
Umiri lok kuni funy lu kristal.
how to eliminate those barriers.
Kin me kwanyo ki geng le
Because we
anonyo.
said everybody is made in the image of God.
Yano wa ne dano wen ki chwe gi chel palaba.
Step number 3
Rome na Mario there.
is dealing with those barriers that I've just talked about.
Keme ki geng ma wati lo yene.
As you can say, you can remove some of them.
Wawaje ne waramo kwanyo ki
You
geng yo.
create supports like I talked about, someone sitting with an elder so that they can explain to them.
Kit ma waje ko ne ka ngat ma iro ding no ngat mo beru tie ka konye me niang gena kiti wacho.
And in some rare cases, you create special environments for people with disabilities.
Kidong ki chel bene keru yub mo mabe ma konyo joma tiki goro.
So I want to talk about the 3 ministry models.
Amir ne look ikum dok tija dek ma papat.
So when you go back in your churches, you might end up with one of these 3.
Makai doke ka nicha chi romo timo ola chele kiana deke.
The first one is the integrated model.
Mi achil ene ye mano ki keru dano ka chil.
The integrated model is that people with disabilities,
Jo magitiki ngolo
they come in the church
gen gi bine ka nicha.
and they participate in all ministries
Ki wego gen bene gi tiu gen
like
malo ba
everybody of us.
Machalo dano ne weng.
Is your church like that?
Ka nicha ni mono tikumeno.
Which church is like that?
Ka nicha mene matie I Roma gi wego lo ngolo be gi tiu.
Put up your hand if at your church people with disabilities, they come and they are free to serve everywhere.
Kaka nicha ni lo ngolo gi bino gi tia gonya mi tich.
I only see 2 churches.
Atia neno ka nicha rio eken.
I've seen the 3rd one.
Anayan me adek be okate.
So we have to do a better job.
Umir wa yup kid ma wati yup
That
ere.
people with disabilities, when we say come inside the church,
We kawa neno joma tiki ngolo gi donya ka nicha.
they don't just come and sit here.
Pego bin ma gi bera mod.
They are also able to serve in the children's ministry,
We guti bena bod le
in the
tino.
women's ministry,
Bod mo
in
imege.
the choir.
Gibe
They
giwero.
can serve everywhere
Gen gi tiki kero mi tich ka bera ma papa.
depending on their talent.
Malubo kid mod ma gi tiko ere.
The second ministry
Mina Mario ne.
is the hybrid model. That is a very English word.
Iluone hybrid.
This is where you find that when you bring people with disabilities in the church,
Ena yeka ikilu joma tiki ngolo ma papa ka nicha.
for instance, on a Sunday,
La bole ching chabet.
they can come and sit here
Giramo bino gi bera nyim.
and be part of worship and praise.
Gen bena gi beru igvudul
Are
palo
we
pakele
together?
waro.
We can sing, we can dance, we can jump, we can shout to the road. They are seated here.
Waramo we, waramo lenge mano gen go beru bekenyo.
But when the pastor starts preaching,
Kala kwado funy.
they will not learn.
Gen pego banyang mo.
So what you do, you take them to the back or to a corner or to another room,
Gen made time chwale ge angej onyo irum mukene.
and you preach to them at a level
Ichako dong tiro lok palo ba.
where they can understand.
Iruom magen genyang.
Are we together?
Watika chel.
That means they can be part of one thing that the church is doing,
Tian lokane giramo ripe ke luak gen man kanita
but the other time they will not be able to understand.
Ento jim mukene madong gen pegenyang.
So instead of us keeping them seated there,
Mi aka weko go bed ma pegeti nyang ngoti.
and they are not learning anything,
Mano pegeti nyang.
we take them to another room or corner,
Wakwanyo gi o chi wachwale gi
and
kamo.
we have one of the preachers or pastors or usher
Chi wa weko la kwat nyula mi kony mo achi.
preach to them and explain to them slowly
Chako tieto bot
and
gi
in
kor
a
ki kor.
manner they can understand.
Wek gen bena go nyang ngo matiti me.
So that is the hybrid model.
Le enu ne ye ki luoni hybrid.
That some things of the church,
Ma jimi mukene ma ikanicha ni.
they can do them with everybody else.
Giramo timo ne mano dan na weng tika chi.
But for some other things,
Ento pe jimi mukene.
they won't be able to do them.
Gen no pegaramo timo
So
ne.
you put them aside and you teach them slowly.
Chi ki kwanyo gi ki tero gi ki funyo gi yo.
Are we
ma gi
together?
nyang. Watika chel.
The third one
Me adeke.
is the specialized model.
Ene yub makira dak pat.
And the specialized model is that when that person has come to church on a Sunday,
Kai nen ngat matiki ngolo ne ubino chabet.
strictly that person will not be able to be part of the church congregation.
Nung ngat ene paramo beru ikien luak mukene.
Whether it is worship and praise, whether it is preaching, they will not be able to be part of
Dul
that.
palo pak kelo war
So
kelo me
when they
no
come, they need to be in a special corner or a special room,
Chidong jo ne kago bino ke
and
chwale
somebody
gi
is
kona mo
teaching to
onye
them
rumo.
or singing with them at
Ching
a
ngat
very
mo
different level.
chako tij bot gi I ruom magen genyang mabe.
Have we understood the three ministry models?
Waniang ruom adek mapapate.
Let me go through them one more time. I
We
think
kong
my
daka
time is
no.
done. Either the person comes with a disability,
Ngat mo tiki ngolo ni romo bino.
sits in the church,
Beru ikien dano.
can be part of worship and
Romo
praise,
beru kien lo pak
can
kelo
be
war.
part of preaching,
Romo beru jo
can
mafunyi lo
even
palo
go
ba.
and serve in a ministry program.
Gi romo beti yu tij mukene matie.
That is the integrated model.
Li enne ke luone integrated.
Or the persons come to church on a Sunday
Unyu ngat mo bino I chabet.
and they can sit and dance and sing.
Giramo beru gi wer dak gi mielo kachel.
And when we start time of preaching where everybody is quiet,
Kadong chako funyu lok palo ba.
we take them in another room and preach to them
Chidong wa
differently.
kwanya gi water gi kamukene chi wa funyu
That
gi.
is the hybrid
Li
model.
eno ne kiluone hybrid.
And the other one is when a person comes to church on a Sunday
Kidong me adek ne ka ngato bino chabet.
and they cannot do anything with all the other people.
Magi mo magiramo timo ke luak pere.
When we are doing worship and praise and preaching, they cannot be there.
Maka gi tiga watika pak watika wer
We
we
create a
watika
small
funyu.
space for them and we teach them from there.
Pegiramo beri chi wa chwalo gi kama wa funyu gi
So
niang
you will
mabe.
find different types of disabilities.
Iniang ni kit kwe gor ti mapapat.
We are going to shape how your ministry looks like.
Kwe gor le eno bo wego dokti yu tij palo ba pe gi beri mapat bene.
For instance, if somebody is missing a leg,
Ne bolle ka ngat mo matiene tung chel pe.
they can come and do everything else.
Giramo timo jemi mukene.
Are we together? But if someone has autism or he has an intellectually disabled,
Ento ka ngat mo tiki mawiyo nyuen na ye.
that means they might not do everything else.
Tian lokene jemi mukene ne keto gi yete.
They can only maybe be part of worship.
Gok giramo beru vut dul pake wa.
So that will determine that.
Le eno ne kit ngola chel moko ngoma mir go tim.
So lastly,
Me agi khene dong.
as we work towards changing the culture of our church,
Machala wa tika tij mi lako te kwar pakanicha wa.
remember it's about changing you as the leadership team,
Wi ko po ni chake ke lako in ke lutera ni.
changing the entire congregation
Lako lu krista weng.
to work together and accommodate people with disabilities.
Weke ti kachil chi joma tiki ngolo go beri kienwa.
Now, you must remember
Wi wa miro po.
that disability ministry is not a special program.
Ni tij kachil ke lu gor pedak ke mo ma nyen total.
We are not building something very special that is from another planet.
Pe watika chako ge mo ma dako a ke lobo mapat.
It is part of the Great Commission.
Li enini ti kien chik ma Kristo
So
or
it's not
wakere.
optional.
Eni pe yera metimo.
And as leaders,
Machara lutela.
we must work with everyone.
Mirwati ki dan weng
So
kachil.
speak to your leadership team,
Lok ki lutela ni.
speak to your congregation
Lok ki luak magabino
on
kalega.
how you can work together as a team.
Kid mo ramo tij kachil.
Remember the word church?
Wipo kanicha.
It's the gathering of what?
Oberu gore pa jama ki
An
luonge.
assembly. And lastly,
Me agiki.
when you go create a plan,
Kade dok ba go yomo.
a roadmap
Kid mai bi chako kwere.
of how you are going to change.
Kid mai bi chako kwele loga ne.
Don't just imagine things
Pe go mere wi.
and don't
Tama,
keep the
tama.
thoughts in your head,
Pe wego gako ki wi.
because for you now understand it.
Pian inde ngayu.
Put it down on the paper
Kicho pe karata.
and say these are the things I want us to do,
Chide wat ki luak ni ene gen ma mena
and
watimu.
allow your leadership team and congregation to contribute to the ideas.
Chi wek lutela kachil ki lu
You
krista
can
gumi
say-
tamge.
This year or this month,
ni mwaka ni nyodue eni
we are going to build a ramp.
wabi geru kama weko ngolo donyo
Next
maber
year, we are going to expand the toilet door.
mwaka manyen wabi yabo choron wa wek wa yub maber
We are going to buy a projector.
wabi wil projector
So
beru tie
have a plan that you put right down
bet ki yub mo ma uketo piny
and follow that plan.
chiu chak lupo ne
Are we together?
watika chel
Are we ready to go and start disability ministries?
watia tera mono michero chako konyo lungolo
Let me see those who are ready to go and start them.
weka nen jodi magawaja bichero chako
As God being my witness,
machara lo ba yete chaderna
I'm going to request Pastor Martin here
ana be lego la kwat Martin
to invite us one day
wek da ko luong wo dojo
to
kan
come to your different churches
wek walim kanicha wu
and see how far
wachak neno romene mo
you
oye
are at achieving this goal.
kin machara do utiyu oye
I thank you very much.
afoi wu mateka dada
Let's clap better than that, please. Let's
kong wa do
appreciate
ching wa
God,
makaro meno
for this. I was going to ask, then you may answer it later. How do I know that this person fits this of the three? This the eye breed or whatever. How do I know this person needs need to be put maybe in the corner? Or how do I do that?
ni an mona niang ni ning ni ngate eni dak meta ni ke kwanye ke tere kwana mo kene ka wek ke konya niang ni ning ikin roma dek ma papat ma ke fonyo ne
Yeah, that's a very good question.
eno la peny maber
Now, when this person comes to church on Sunday
ka ngate eni biro ka niche ching chabet
and they sit here
chiu beri di luak
and we are worshiping and praise,
wano tika pakolo ba kun wore
before you speak to them,
ma fut pi logo botgi
start noticing the things they like.
ko e chak niang ngo ma ge maro
Do they like worshiping and praising?
gien mono ge maro pako ke wolo ba
Yes.
kumeno
Or when they are here and worshiping and praising is playing,
onyo ka go beri mano lo pake woro ge
are
tika
they
telo
feeling uncomfortable and closing their ears and wanting to move out because it is noisy?
gien mono ge beri ma ge chulu it ge ma ge mer ge kato pian wo ti matere
If that's the case, for instance, if they cannot speak,
kane ki jone pegara mo lok pege ken ge
that means they don't like worship and praise.
tian lok ni gen pege maro pake woro
Now, when we are here and you have started preaching and they are seated here
ka inde chako funy ma gen go beri kuja
and they are very uncomfortable, they are shouting, making noise,
itika neno gi tika wo ata ta pego beri mod
that means they will not be able to.
tian lok ni pege bo fu
Learn
niang
anything.
funy ni
So you keep moving them away to different locations to see how do they react.
chimiri chak kwanyo gi mai lako ka beri gi chi nen ka mai kero gi iene gi time ni ning
But as we learn how to communicate and develop relationship with their families,
ento machalo wachako geto wat ke dogange
talk to the families.
ko lok ki
Remember
dogange
we said you cannot just work with the person themselves.
wan wache pera mo tich kela ngolo ne
You
ken
work with the entire family.
umir ti ki dogange
So ask the family, what do they like? What do they not like?
peny gi ni ngate ene mono mar ngo ke deg gena
And
ngo
that will help you develop the model that they fit in.
le en ne konyi mi moko tam ne aker jone ka kwene
Thank you. Thank you so much.
afoye
I
mate
think that does not need hurrying anything.
atam ne ene pedak mero ro ne to